Hey guys, welcome back to Tosty, Talko, the sort of podcast thing where I rant at you a lot. Episode 2, What to Expect from the Elder Scrolls 6. And I have a typo in my background, that's embarrassing. Alright, typo's fixed, and my title's wrong. Okay, 1 second. There's literally only one thing I need to do for the background of this video, and I managed to mess it up twice in the first 10 seconds. Okay, welcome back everybody, again, with the right title card to Toasty Taco, Episode 2. So start your chores, go to the bathroom, whatever you're doing while I'm in the background of your audio, and let's get going. So we're going to go over a couple things. We're going to go over map and setting, we're going to go over graphics, we're going to go over gameplay, lore, story, cities, NPCs, enemies, races, etc. If someone wants to timecode these in the comments, that'd be cool. I'm not going to do it though, because I'm lazy. So let's start things off by diving into map and setting. I think it's pretty safe to assume that map and setting is essentially the main thing that we know for this game so far, is that it's going to be Hammerfell. Now, there's going to be some people in the comments who might differ, some people online who might differ, but Hammerfell got soft confirmed. I mean, they posted that one post on their Twitter like a year or two ago with that coin on Hammerfell that sort of wink nudged us into confirming that Elder Scrolls 6 was going to be in Hammerfell. Some people are saying elsewhere, which I guess the argument can be made. I don't really see it. Another thing is that, obviously, some people suggest that we're going to put High Rock above Hammerfell as well, which I think would be great, because then we get two provinces, twice as much variety. And another thing is that, I would love to see more variety in the game in general. So hopefully, I'm hoping that we can get a Hammerfell and a High Rock, because High Rock is a small enough province that I think it wouldn't be too hard to add it on, because High Rock is, it's not that big, I think. In other news, ProcGen. I think ProcGen's a big part of the, not necessarily the setting, but the map, like the actual game world that they're going to be making for this game. I think, if you've been following the Elder Scrolls 6 news a decent amount, not that there is any news, but Bethesda's been hiring a lot of AI people, AI technicians and engineers, etc. We've got all these different AI guys, which some people are kind of suggesting could actually mean that we are doing a, more of a ProcGen world, where we have, kind of Starfield style. We're not necessarily handcrafting the entire Elder Scrolls map, but proc generating it, because that'll obviously make it way easier to make big, etc. Personally, I don't really think ProcGen is good for these kind of games. We saw how it went for Starfield. Not well is the main thing. Check episode 1 if you want to see how that went. But I think ProcGen, a little bit of ProcGen to just do the environments, that's fine. ProcGen a forest, ProcGen a mountain, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I'd want you to handcraft, fine-tune it after. I really hope they don't just kind of ProcGen the map and roll with it, because we already have Daggerfall, which is set in High Rock and Hammerfell, and it's all ProcGen. So, if you're not going to remaster Daggerfall, don't just make Elder Scrolls 6 Daggerfall with a different story, because we've been there, done that, right? So I hope that we get more of a handcrafted world still, handcrafted cities. I really don't want to see a ton of ProcGen with our different things. And we'll talk more about the AI stuff once we get to NPCs and stuff, but that's kind of what we're looking at with map and setting. I think, as far as setting goes, Hammerfell is a great spot. You might have seen the slight amount of internet news of the Bethesda employees' Pinterest inspiration folder being leaked. And it had some, different, desert hairstyles, turbans, desert concept art, and stuff like that. Odds are, it's probably just a fake leak, and it's not true. However, it did get me really excited to see, because imagining an Elder Scrolls game set in a setting like that would just be super cool, because we've mostly just had high fantasy for Elder Scrolls. Morrowind was a little different, but, especially Oblivion and Skyrim, we get a very generic European feeling, just kind of normal fantasy setting, which is great, right? But it would be nice to see something a little different. So in Hammerfell, we have the curved swords. We love to talk about the curved swords from Hammerfell. We get cool scimitars, all the different robes, turbans. I think the biggest thing, though, is desert as a setting feels very underused in video games. Because just think of, especially an open world game, all the different opportunities you have to have, pyramids or tombs, or just, ruins amongst the dunes, giant scorpion fights, raiders and marauders, these different bandit camps, nomads, there's just oasi, so many just cool desert-centric locations that you don't usually see in an open world game. Because how fun would it do to be if you have your Elder Scrolls 6 survival mod, or hopefully they have it in the base game, and if you're gonna do the main, if you're doing a quest, you actually have to plot which oasi am I going to be stopping at from this city to this city. Like, you can follow, like, trade routes. You can join a caravan. Like, that would be so cool. But I'm getting sidetracked. Because this is not a what we want from the game. It's what to expect from the game. So I think, bottom line, we can pretty safely plan on Hammerfell. High Rock is probably going to be added in there too, depending on, how good of a game it's going to be. So I'm hoping we get High Rock in there. High Rock would also be great because, of course, you get all the different noble factions, which are great for stories and quests and stuff. We'll get into that a little later as well. But as far as map and setting goes, of what to expect officially, I think we can safely say Hammerfell, basically guaranteed. All right. Next up, we've got graphics. Okay, so I was optimistic about the graphics back in the day, and I'm less optimistic now. Now, Bethesda's never really been known for their graphical prowess. I don't think any of their games necessarily look bad. They do have a bit of a jank charm to them, I will admit. But, I've never seen it really look bad, and, there's enough modders that they can kind of fix it. I think the biggest thing, though, is that, back in the day, again, there's so, limited news, but there was talk of, techniques like photogrammetry, pictures, etc. into the graphics for, ultra-realistic graphics, which I thought really cool. I thought was really cool back in the day. And then we see Starfield. And Starfield was their next-gen game that came out last year, and it doesn't look terrible, don't get me wrong. But it also didn't look new. It didn't look like it came out in 2024. I think, the planet environments looked pretty cool. Not saying there's a lot to do there, but they look pretty cool. The trees, animals, etc. They didn't look too bad. The weather and the skies and stuff. The NPCs though, that was rough. The NPCs are really not making much progress since 2015. So I'm really hoping that Elder Scrolls 6 can get some graphic overhauls, because we see stuff like Cyberpunk's. If you're doing an open world game, if you can get a really immersive set of graphics, animations, faces, etc., you can really put yourself in the setting. So I'm hoping, again, Elder Scrolls 6 doesn't need perfect graphics in my opinion, but I do have to say, and again, what to expect from the graphics, probably a little lackluster for the time period. And that's kind of how Elder Scrolls goes, because Bethesda definitely does the, make a big game, comes out, so they're usually a year or two behind in the graphics department just because their games are coming out, because Morrowind, Oblivion, etc., you're kind of making an older game that takes long enough that by the time you release it, the graphics are outdated. So I don't think the graphics are going to be bad by any stretch of the imagination, but they're probably not going to be great. I do hope they're good, but probably nothing crazy, nothing to write home about. Kind of lackluster, normal Bethesda graphics. Okay, next up, we've got gameplay. Now, gameplay is an interesting one because it's the hardest one to speculate about, because obviously it's a game. They're going to change up the gameplay every release. I think, of course, we can always, we can do the safe broad strokes. I mean, it's going to be an open world RPG. You're going to pick your character. You can do, different quest lines and stuff. There's no way they're going to change that. Overall, they're probably likely going to mirror Skyrim's gameplay the most, for the fact that it's very consumer-friendly. And, of course, Skyrim's the one that made money. It's the most popular one, so, of course, they're going to try and replicate that. I think as far as looking at new things they're going to implement, or, just seeing kind of the direction they're going, looking at Starfield is, of course, the best way to do that, because it's the game that we have most recently, so we can see what ways they're changing it. Now, of course, Starfield has guns and stuff, so it's going to be a little different, but I think we saw Starfield introduce, a background system. We had them introduce, your own kind of portable base, which probably won't work as well for, an Elder Scrolls game, but kind of that idea. We have, crew members that you can recruit, which I think would work super well in an Elder Scrolls game, if you can recruit different caravan members, adventuring party, etc. And, we also see Starfield, the perk system, background systems, some of those different stuff. Maybe I already said that. But that's kind of the general idea. So I do think they're leaning a little more towards character uniqueness, because Skyrim definitely tanked that, right? You pick your race, and then you just level up your stuff. So I do like how Starfield did have you pick your background and stuff, and it does help you feel slightly more unique. So I'm hoping they keep pushing that and give you just more options to be super unique. But as far as what to expect, I think we can say, pretty good, Bethesda experience, probably erring on the side of Skyrim gameplay, a little bit of the Starfield background systems thrown in there, and I really hope, if they're committed to making the game good, they'll add some new stuff and kind of freshen it up, maybe bring, I'd love to see, a lot of people like to say, bring attributes back and stuff, class systems, I'd love that as well. I think we can also expect to get some Creation Club aspects. The Creation Club stuff from Skyrim I think could probably be base game, scroll crafting, staff making, spell making, some of those things, survival modes. I'd hope those are in the base game, not Creation Club. And as far as Creation Club goes, I think we can expect them to have a Creation Club too, because they like their money. But yeah, so I think that's kind of what we're going to get for gameplay wise. I think when talking about gameplay, it's definitely more suited for what we want from the game and less of a what to expect from the game. So what to expect, kind of Skyrim Starfield blend, hopefully some new stuff, but in the future we'll see kind of what we want from it instead. Alright, next up we have lore. This is an interesting one. Elder Scrolls 6, every Elder Scrolls game is spaced out by time. Of course, we saw the biggest time jump in between Oblivion and Skyrim. Now, I doubt we're going to do a super big time jump again, because it would kind of be weird to skip ahead another 100 years after we just skipped ahead like 200. Especially after some of the setup we had in Skyrim. So I think we're going to stay pretty close to Skyrim. It's probably going to start kind of a newish timeline. And so I'm probably going to plan like 5 years, 10 years after Skyrim. However, I do think, hear me out here, this is maybe a little bit of a hot take, a little bit of a weird idea. If they don't want to pick a canon winner of the Civil War yet, they could have it set in the time of the Civil War. So that it could actually, Elder Scrolls 6 could happen at the same time as Skyrim, which would sort of be an interesting way to take the series, or, to the entry to the series. Because first, then you don't have to mess around with player choice in Skyrim, because obviously if you have a canon winner of the Civil War, it kind of makes the Civil War questline weird in Skyrim. And, so we have that aspect, and it could be cool just because then you have, like, conflict on the borders, which can be cool, and then that can give a reason for, focus more on the South and stuff, since Skyrim's kind of busy doing its own thing. So that's one thing. If they do pick a canon winner of the Civil War, though, again, what to expect from the game, I think the canon winner, we can all agree, is the Stormcloaks, just for the sake of, I don't really know why the developers would add a Civil War in the lore in the game in general if the rebels just got beat, because then it's kind of like the Civil War never happened. Because what's the point in the lore of being like, oh yeah, and then the Nords rose up, and then we beat them, and we just kept going. It's just kind of a weird footnote if the rebellion just doesn't win, because then it just corrupts up, gets put away, and it's just not relevant for the rest of the game, and the rest of the series. So I think it's pretty safe to say Stormcloaks are going to win the rebellion, which is going to leave the Empire even weaker, so the Empire is going to be in a very weak state in Elder Scrolls 6, which obviously sets us up for the Thalmor and stuff like that, which I'll get to in just a minute. Other lore stuff that we could look at, Daedric Princes, of course, there's a couple things we could do there. New Daedric Princes, we got that new Daedric Prince Athelia, right? So she could be involved, or we could get, more Daedric Princes, divines, or like different divine beings that we haven't seen before. We could have, we're of course going to see expansions, assuming it's taking place in Hammerfell. We're going to see expansions to the Redguard lore, maybe the Breton lore, stuff like that. Of course, Thalmor lore, since that's kind of the current time period we're in. All right, now for a big one, story. Story is actually probably going to be a sort of easy one to predict, at least if we're just going off of what we've seen in Skyrim. So the most commonly talked about thing for the story of a new Elder Scrolls game is of course going to be the Thalmor. That seems to be kind of the biggest unresolved kind of setup thing from Skyrim, is that we have the Thalmor, attacking the Empire and having those wars, banning Talos, etc., etc. There's a lot of talk of, like the different towers and stuff and how the towers are going to play into it. I think the Thalmor will be involved. The Thalmor are going to be big. But I think this is a new idea. I don't actually think the Thalmor is going to be the main plot of Elder Scrolls 6. I don't think it's going to be the main quest. I think it's going to take more of a Civil War questline style of it's like the secondary narrative. Where the Civil War is like a very core, big, main questy kind of aspect of Skyrim, but it's not the main story. That's kind of how I see the Thalmor quest. Because the Thalmor questline and lore and politics, it's very political, kind of like the Civil War. It's very like political and intriguey, and it's very like historic feeling. So I think we'd see the Thalmor take a second place of, do you want to join the Thalmor, or do you want to join the Imperials? I think that'd be another cool kind of way to offer your player choice. But I don't think it's going to be the main quest. Mainly because, just like fighting the Thalmor isn't really main quest worthy, in my opinion. Because, we see Elder Scrolls 1, fight a very powerful sorcerer. Elder Scrolls 2, you're fighting a robotic god. Elder Scrolls 3, you're also fighting a god. Elder Scrolls 4, you're also fighting a god. Elder Scrolls 5, you're also fighting a god. So the Thalmor just don't quite seem like the same kind of villain that you're going to be fighting. We don't have like a definitive villain. So I think the actual Thalmor conflict will take a more secondary role like the Civil War, and the actual main quest aspect is going to be more focused on a powerful being that actually affects the big overall history. Because Skyrim's a lot more about killing Alduin than it is about winning the Stormcloaks. Morrowind does a lot more about killing Dagoth, right? So it kind of, there should be like one big powerful enemy you're trying to look at. And maybe he's a Thalmor. Maybe you're just fighting, King of the Thalmor, Thalmor Mage, or something like that. So they could be involved, but I would prefer maybe for the Thalmor to take a second place and the actual main villain. Or, it could be a plot twist, too. It could be fighting the Thalmor for the first half, and then secretly, like, Boethia or something has been behind the scenes. Like, there's a lot of stuff we could do there. And, of course, we're just going to have to wait and see. But, of course, I think the biggest thing is that we're going to see that Thalmor will set us up for kind of that big quest. All right, last but not least, kind of going to lump all of these together. So, cities, NPCs, and enemies. It might sound sort of weird to lump cities in at first, but I think the overall idea is just the things that inhabit the world. So, not the world design itself, but the stuff that's in it. I think one of the biggest gripes with Skyrim that I'm not gonna lie, I think is totally valid is that the cities were just really lackluster. I think they had very cool ideas, and it's not, they're not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but they could have been better. Whiterun's fine, Windhelm is fine. Really like Markarth. They got, pretty good amount of unique ideas, but they're just kind of small. Like there's like 20 people living in them. And Morrowind and Oblivion are older games, but the cities feel bigger. And I'm not, I'm not quite sure how they did that. I don't know. It's like there's more layers. There's like more buildings. They feel bigger. They feel like there's more stuff to do. Skyrim, like Whiterun especially, Whiterun just feels like one street. You just walk up the middle right to Dragon's Reach. Whereas like Morrowind and Oblivion and stuff, it actually feels like I'm actually having to like walk around, figure out where I am. So I'm hoping that the cities are really overhauled. They have the time we saw in Starfield. I think that's one of the Starfield's stronger aspects, actually, is we actually saw them focus on making bigger cities. Todd Howard himself, even like when he was promoting it, was talking about how Starfield had the biggest Bethesda cities so far. So I'm hoping they keep that going and they make really big cities for Elder Scrolls 6. That would be awesome. And as far as NPCs go and enemies go, this is where the AI people from the beginning of the video kind of come back. Are we going to use a lot of AI with our NPCs and enemies? Because I think, voice acting and stuff is great, but it does limit the amount of stories we can have and things like that. So are we going to use AI to voice NPCs and enemies? Perhaps. Are we going to use AI to determine how they act? Could be cool, give them, more realistic actions. That could include reputation systems as well. That could include different roleplay, because the roleplay has been a little limited in more recent entries. So I'm hoping that the NPCs and races and stuff, like, they get pretty good AI overhauls, just as far as, like, feeling like believable real characters that you can interact with and stuff like that. I do think I'm hoping we see a influx of different races as well. Because of course we have the 10 playable races, but there's a lot of races in the lore that we don't really interact with much. I mean, Falmer we interacted in Skyrim, so that's good. Dwemer we kind of see in Morrowind and Skyrim as well. But, as we look at Hammerfell especially, I'd love to see, like, slowed trade. Because Hammerfell, has a lot of ports and stuff, so it'd be fun to see, like, slowed trade and, like, different, like, smuggling networks and stuff. We could get, like, sea elves and all those different things. So there's a lot of, like, races we could see that we just haven't seen before. I'm not saying they should be playable. They could be playable, but I'd at least like to see them in the game. It would be fun to interact with people who are maybe not quite as humanoid or just more unique, different races in general. To spice it up, stay more true to the lore. And another thing with all of these different things is variety. I think no matter how good you're doing it, variety is always going to be good. Especially because when you're looking at Elder Scrolls games, open world RPGs, if you have an open world game but the stuff is repetitive, it's really not that much of an open world game. I think Morrowind did a very good job at this with their cities. Morrowind had, their cities, it's an old game. The cities can be small and stuff, but I think they did a really good job at making them feel different because you have the Imperial style cities, you have your Dunmer style cities, and that includes like Telvanni cities, that includes your Hlalu cities, that includes your Redoran cities. So when you went to different parts of Morrowind, the stuff felt different. Whereas in Oblivion and Skyrim, of course every city kind of had its unique flavor, but a lot of them still just kind of felt like Viking City number 2, Viking City number 3. So I'd love to see more pronounced cities, more unique cities, bigger cities, etc. NPCs and enemies, again, I'd also love to see that. Give us more variety of Daedra, more variety of bandits. There's a lot we can do here, where if we just have the exact same Draugr in every single dungeon, for example, it's just the dungeons just don't get as fun after a while because everything just feels the same. So if we can get, even if they act the same, if we can just get different skin looking, just different looking enemies to make places feel different. Of course, if they act different, that's a bonus. Different weapons and armor is also just a great thing. However, I don't know how much they're really going to do that, because if we've seen past games, they try their best, and again, it's not bad, but it could be improved. So there's kind of my overall thoughts, everyone, on what to expect from the Elder Scrolls 6. Hopefully you kind of got some takeaways or formatted your thoughts, maybe got some different hopes, expectations, etc. kind of set. I think episode 3, we're going to do a little trio here. So we have our episode 1, the development cycle of Elder Scrolls 6. We have episode 2 right here, kind of talking about what we can actually expect from it. And then next week's episode 3, is going to talk about what we would like to see from it. That should be fun. And then after that, we will kind of branch off of the Elder Scrolls 6 train and look into some other stuff. But overall, that's kind of, I think, what we can expect from the game so far. And of course, with as limited news as we have, this could all be wrong, this could all be right. We're just gonna have to see. So hopefully we get some news on Test 6 at the Game Awards this year, E3 next year, something like that. But for now, I hope I kept you entertained for roughly 20 minutes, and if you stayed to the end of the video, thank you for giving me 20 minutes of your time, and I'll see you next week with the next episode, next week on livestream, and hopefully with the mainline YouTube video soonish. Alright, I'll see you guys next There's no drum roll and I sound stupid. Okay, next time. Bye-bye.
I'm a god. How can you kill a god? What a grand and intoxicating innocence. I'm a god. How can you kill a god?